You an old Harlem monster.
I could punch you right in your face like a grown man. I won't.
And then we gonna
and
fight.
You won't do shit.
No, I'm at the point of no return. I'm at that point because this was totally unnecessary.
I got 3 bricks in the car, but I'll wear it. Cam started crying, man. And he told us right then and there that he would put himself in PC.
Harlem pride collides with camera-ready disrespect. Dane threatens to swing. Cameron declares the bridge burned, and then a Big L era memory crashes through the windshield. A story that paints Cam in tears while the cops close in. This is bigger than insult comedy. It's a custody fight over narrative. Who commands the paid-in-full story? Who gets to turn history into television, into money, into legacy? Across the next chapters, we follow a paper trail and a pride war, a shiny announcement, an ugly interview, an even uglier lawsuit, and one dockside apology that might be strategy in disguise. You'll hear the claims, the counterpunches, and the receipts. Then decide who's actually writing the script. In between, the camera catches the moments. Who keeps their cool? Who reaches for history as a weapon? And who understands that perception beats paperwork when millions are on the line? 50 Cent says he's got the rights and a prestige series in motion. Dame Dash waves it off as trolling and insists there are no simple rights to buy. Buried under the jokes is the question that decides whether cameras roll. Who actually controls Paid in Full as a living franchise? In Hollywood, ownership isn't a single trophy. It's a filing cabinet. Underlying IP, chain of title, life rights, likeness approvals, soundtrack masters, trademarks, sequel and remake clauses, each drawer has a key holder. Publicly announcing a show is cheap. Delivering a season means every drawer opens on schedule. That's why this trigger matters. Because if 50 really stitched together enough cooperation to start pre-production, Dame's leverage shifts from "you can't" to "you have to deal with me." And if 50 is bluffing for momentum, Dan can slow the rollout with paperwork questions until the money cools.
It's not a real acquisition. Same thing with Power, the book.
From the outside, this looks like ego theater. But to insiders, it's textbook packaging. Television moves when a producer attaches cast, a showrunner, a network, and a hook that promises ratings. Cameron, as executive producer, is that hook. It signals access to Dipset lore, to Harlem aesthetics, to a built-in audience that has already proven it will watch crime epics and argue every episode online. For 50, the optics are perfect. The guy who turned Queen Street history into ratings now teams with a Harlem star of the original film. For Dame, the optics are infuriating. The executive who put Cam on the board is being written out of the new board meeting. Here's Dame's counter. The public doesn't understand how many routes exist to a TV adaptation. You don't always own the story. Sometimes you license a path through it. So he questions the headline. If there's nothing real to acquire, what exactly did 50 buy? That reframes the debate from celebration to scrutiny. And scrutiny gives Dame a foothold. Because once fans start asking for receipts, producers start making calls. And calls lead to pauses, renegotiations, and new credits appearing in the opening titles.
The thing is, he'll be cutting me off. Okay, so why would I be the first?
At the same time, Dame is performing for 2 juries. The first is the culture, Harlem Rockefeller alumni, and the hip-hop audience that tracks his wins and losses like sports. The second is the industry, platforms that may green light a counter project if Dame convinces them there's smoke around 50's announcement. Lean on credibility, point to precedent, and question the chain of title. Those tactics buy time. And time is leverage, especially when your opponent is selling inevitability. So when Dame says the acquisition isn't real, he isn't just nitpicking. He's attacking the fuel that powers 50's machine. Perception. Momentum dies when doubt lives. Yet Cam's involvement keeps the narrative alive because audiences crave a reunion of faces tied to the original, which leaves us at a standoff. One side selling paperwork, the other selling inevitability. Before anything hits a clapboard, this chapter turns on who the crowd believes and who stays calm under pressure. Dame walks into the Breakfast Club intending to reset the conversation. He wants to talk deals, equity, and misunderstanding, how the internet loves a downfall story and how he's still the architect. But television isn't the only stage with ratings. Morning radio is gladiator sport, and Charlemagne knows exactly where to press. When rumors about bankruptcy and debt surface, Dame tries to reframe them as tools, loans as leverage, structure as strategy. The problem is that strategy doesn't trend, conflict does. And the moment he threatens to punch a host, years of entrepreneurial sermons shrink into a 10-second meme.
If somebody gets a loan for $180 million, are they rich or broke?
The money talk is supposed to reset the scoreboard. Loans as leverage, deals as validation. You don't know what I own, but the internet hears a different record. If you were that up, why are you this mad? Dame's entire brand is ownership, boss talk, Harlem aplomb. So when he swings at hosts, questions masculinity, and revisits decades-old grievances, it undercuts the sermon. Meanwhile, Cameron barely breaks a sweat. He lets the timeline crown him as the reasonable one, until he doesn't. He turns respectfully into personally, and prepares a response built to live on every platform that hates nuance.
You said beef is corny.
Yo, you're dumb.
Zoom in on the messaging. Dame is always sold beef is corny, a philosophy that positions conflict as a distraction from ownership. So when he leans on personal history and attacks character, he invites the exact counter he hates. You're not protecting legacy, you're punishing people for moving on. Cam responds by making it personal on his terms. Calmly first, then surgically, then if needed, musically. The temperature difference is the story. Dame is volcanic. Cam is winter air. Even people who disagree with Cam feel the chill, and that chill shapes headlines, bookings, and brand calls. Now pay attention to the pivot that follows. After the interview, the narrative stops asking whether 50 can legally move a series forward and starts wondering whether Dame can emotionally move forward at all. That pivot sets up the next act. A number so large it sounds like a parody, yet it functions exactly as designed. Announce damages in the hundreds of millions, and you don't just signal seriousness, you commandeer the topic. Every conversation shifts to risk, exposure, and who crossed what line first, which is why this radio blow-up isn't a sideshow. It's the runway for the lawsuit. And here's the cliff we leave you on for now. If perception really beats paperwork, then this interview is the most expensive 10 minutes of the whole saga. It rebrands Dame from executive to antagonist in the eyes of casual viewers, and it hands Cam a cleaner podium to escalate without looking petty. Next, we'll see how memory gets weaponized. A decades-old car ride becomes evidence, tears become headlines, and a friendship becomes a courtroom exhibit. Stay with us, because the receipt Cam pulls next isn't a contract, it's a story. Cam doesn't raise his voice, he raises the stakes. When Dame takes it from boardroom to personal, Cam flips the venue to his own show and frames the moment like a contract breach of the friendship itself. He gives the audience a clean, cold principle. This didn't have to be public. That sentence matters because it makes the escalation look like a forced hand, not a stunt. If your brand is cool under pressure, you let your opponent overheat, and then you plate the temperature difference. Calm embarrasses rage.
I'm at the point it didn't have to be public.
Cam's subtext is harsher than the tone. Point of no return isn't just a slogan, it's an operational policy. It means I won't accept a private phone call as a fix for a public violation. You discredited me in front of millions. The correction must live in the same light. That's courtroom logic applied to culture. Match venue for venue, scale for scale. And it lands because the room remembers. When the laughter fades, reputations stay edited. Cam's strategy is to edit back. What made it personal? According to Cam, it's when history got twisted into a weapon. Old stories become new headlines when they're told with the wrong spin. That's why he draws a line. If we're going to revisit the archives, we're going to do it with receipts, not with humiliation tactics disguised as nostalgia. He signals that he's willing to go there, but on his timing, in his format, with his cuts.
When he said that, I knew it was personal. And that's when I said, all right, let's do personal.
Notice the tempo. Dame's communication style is kinetic. Threats, challenges, righteous monologues. Cam moves like a chess clock. Advance, stop, let you burn your time. That tempo difference creates the audience's moral math. If one side looks impulsive and the other looks surgical, people infer who's in control. And control is the real currency here. Control of the story becomes control of the market. Interviews booked, shows greenlit, brands comfortable, and a city that decides who still represents it well. Cam's message to Harlem is quiet but clear. I'm not turning the block into a circus. If we must fight, we'll do it with quotes, not corners. Here's the cliff we promised. If Cam's issue is the weaponization of history, then the next scene is the exhibit. An old car ride, a name the city reveres, and a detail that hits pride in the ribcage. Was it a fair account or narrative leverage? We'll hear how that memory got told, why it landed like a punch, and what it says about who's willing to blur the past to win the present. Legends are delicate. Attach Big L's name to any story and the room shifts. respect deepens, scrutiny tightens. So when Dame revisits a decades-old incident, police lights, weight in the whip, and Cam crying, it isn't just gossip. It's a credibility test broadcast to the world. You're not just telling a story, you're assigning a role. Brave, scared, loyal, selfish. In rap, those roles calcify brand, and brand calcifies into money.
Well, I got 3 bricks in the car, but I'll wear it. Cam started crying, man. And he told us right then and there that he would put himself in PC. We were laughing, but we were like...
And when we did the lawsuit, she testified that I didn't direct.
Let's decode why this hits so hard. First, stakes, 3 bricks and the threat of jail. Second, proximity to Big L lore, a sacred topic for Harlem. Third, framing, the joke cadence. We were laughing, paired with a character hit. Cam started crying. The structure is engineered for virality. A shocking claim, an honored name, a punchline that travels. But the more a story flies, the more it deforms. Was this an exact recollection? Selective? Exaggerated? Even if every word is true, why tell it now? And why tell it this way? These are editorial choices. And editorial choices reveal motive. For Cam, the motive reads like humiliation as strategy. You don't bring up tears attached to Big L unless you want the city to snicker when my name is mentioned. And that's why his response stakes out personal. He's not arguing the minute by minute. He's challenging the right to turn a private moment into a public scar. He's also reminding everyone that bravery in the streets was never a one-scene audition. Harlem can hold 2 truths. People crack under pressure, and people still stand tall when it counts. Which truth you choose to amplify says more about your agenda than my resume. There's also the legal shadow gathering behind this anecdote. Once you frame someone as cowardly, broke, or dishonest, you venture into claims that, if false, can be expensive. Dame knows the line between opinion and defamation. He's been around enough lawyers to draw it with a ruler. So if he's comfortable telling this, either he believes it's bulletproof or he believes the impact is worth the legal risk. That's not just a storytelling choice, it's a poker tell. Zoom out. The Big L car story isn't just about tears. It's about power over memory. Whoever controls the archive controls the future projects, the docu-series tone, the casting of heroes and heels. If you're Cam, you can't let that stand uncontested because it will live in every pitch room when people discuss whether you're the executive producer who can carry a prestige show. If you're Dame, you drop it because it reasserts an old hierarchy. I was the general, you were the soldier who blinked. Either way, the city watches to see which story sticks. Here's the handoff to the next act. When talk risks turning into financial injury, the board flips from microphones to motions. The number is cinematic, the paperwork real, and the message unmistakable. If you can't beat the narrative in the court of public opinion, take it to an actual court. Up next, the paper war, where damages come with commas and the remedy isn't a tweet. On radio, words trend. In court, words cost. Dame shifts from talking points to torts, putting a price tag on reputational harm so big it hijacks the room. 300 million isn't just a demand, it's a headline that reframes the beef as business interference. You call me broke? You book my son? You broadcast old stories meant to humiliate? Fine, here's my new venue, here are my claims, and here's a number with enough zeros to pull every microphone toward a docket.
He was the reason why I got a couple of these lawsuits.
What's inside a claim like this? Defamation, business disparagement, tortious interference. Each one implies damages beyond bruised ego. You're arguing that statements didn't just sting, they cost. Deals delayed, shows rescinded, partners spooked. And that's where Dame's public posture and private paperwork finally meet. If he can show that a wave of negative press and targeted narratives chilled opportunities, the math starts looking less cartoonish to a jury. Add harassment and conspiracy language, and you're telling a story bigger than tweets. You're alleging a coordinated squeeze. Now look at the optics on the other side. Cam answers the legal threat musically, not legally. He doesn't slow play a statement through counsel. He drops a freestyle the same day, flips images of teeth and debt into punchlines, and makes the courtroom look like the place where humor goes to die. That's a polarity play. While one man itemizes harm, the other man converts the moment into content. In culture wars, fun has home field advantage.
You don't have to buy the rights, I was actually there. So you know 50 trolls.
Here's the leverage lesson. Lawsuits serve 2 purposes, remedy and reputation. Sometimes you don't file to win at trial. You file to force a correction, to make platforms think twice before running the next spicy claim, to put a chill in the group chat. It also buys time to reframe, to negotiate, to turn enemies into co-defendants in the court of public opinion. But the risk is real. Discovery can open your own archive. If your brand rests on, "I built everything," you don't want emails and contracts telling a messier tale. So the chapter ends where the strategy began: perception versus paperwork. Dame's wager is that paperwork can fix perception if the paperwork is heavy enough. Cam's wager is that perception can beat paperwork if the perception is entertaining enough. Both are partially right, but the wild card is a third man who profits when two rivals can't agree on who owns the past. When 50 speaks, people assume two layers: the statement and the smirk behind it. That's not an accident. It's a business model. He's weaponized ambiguity since mixtape wars. Say just enough to move markets, never enough to get boxed in. So when he claims he's got paid in full lined up with Cam as executive producer, you have to decode whether you're hearing a logline, a lock, or a lure. Meanwhile, the mogul math is simple. Every post that triggers Dame is free marketing for the show 50 wants to make, is capable of making, and may already have back-channel commitments for.
Like, how did 50 Cent acquire ownership of Paid in Full?
Do you remember?
Dame's response, that acquisition is a misunderstanding, lands with insiders who know how many routes there are to greenlight. But the public doesn't track rights trees, it tracks vibes. And 50 is a vibes CEO. He knows that if fans believe the show is happening, pressure rises on talent, estates, and platforms to make it happen. The timeline becomes his leverage. Post enough, clown enough, and the culture writes the pilot in their heads. By the time lawyers finish redlining, the audience is already tuned in. Here's the trick 50 perfected: troll as transmedia strategy. A barb isn't just a burn, it's a breadcrumb. He drags rivals into public spats that double as audience testing. If a taunt grabs headlines, that beat might be a scene. If a rumor sparks think pieces, that arc might be a season. And while rivals fight over who owns yesterday, 50 quietly packages tomorrow. Calls to showrunners who don't need 100% of rights, only the right mix of life rights, fair use narrative, and new reporting to tell a based-on story. You don't have to win the past to sell the future. So is he trolling or moguling? Yes, the troll primes the mogul's pipeline. That's why Dame's insistent technicalities won't stop the train by itself. It only changes how many cars he gets to sit in. And that's why Cam's participation matters more than any cap. Cam brings authenticity, Harlem texture, and a cooperative path through memories that Dame refuses to license at a discount, emotionally or financially. One man sells inevitability, one sells access, one sells resistance. Only two need to agree for cameras to roll. After weeks of back and forth, Dame films himself on a dock and floats a new framing: unity over ego. He apologizes to Harlem, wonders aloud why he's even beefing with Cam, and pitches a three-man reconciliation. We could be arguing today and shooting a show tomorrow. On paper, it's the perfect final act. In practice, timing is everything. If the apology follows insults, a meltdown, and a mega lawsuit, the city reads it two ways: growth or spin. The message lands differently depending on what you value. If you prize decorum, the apology is overdue and welcome. If you prize consistency, it raises questions. Should unity come before or after you've called a man broke, humiliated him with old stories, and dragged his family into it? The ethical math matters because Harlem keeps receipts. And Cam's answer, essentially, meet me in the middle of the Red Sea, tells you how he scored it. Symbolic, not sincere. He doesn't reject peace, he rejects PR. Still, there's a sophisticated read here. Dame's unity pitch isn't just image repair, it's a format pitch. Imagine the numbers. 3 marquee names sit down, argue, reconcile, and monetize closure. Brands love healing arcs. Platforms love IP circles completed. It would let Dame reclaim elder statesman status. Let Cam prove he can EP even reconciliation, and give 50 another tentpole to aim his fan base at. The problem is trust. You can sell unity as a product, but you can't fake it on camera twice. If episode 1 smells like spin, there won't be an episode 2. So we end this chapter where we began the series. Who controls the narrative? An apology is a scene, not a season. If it isn't backed by changed behavior, it's just a cutaway. Cam's refusal, at least for now, suggests he'd rather be called petty than be cast, because the wrong reconciliation can lock in a story he's been fighting to rewrite since chapter 3, that he overreacted to a joke instead of defending his name against weaponized history. And with 50 circling the block, a premature kumbaya might do more for ratings than for respect. Strip away the noise, and this is the fight. Paperwork versus perception. Origin story versus ownership story. And who gets to cash out on the legend Harlem helped build? Dame insists he is the architect and deserves final cut. Cam insists that legacy isn't a hostile takeover, that dignity is a term sheet too. 50 doesn't insist, he suggests, and the world leans forward. That's power. The Big L anecdote showed how memory can be bent into a weapon. The Breakfast Club blow-up showed how 10 seconds can erase 10 years of sermons. The $300 million filing showed how fast a feud becomes an industry. And the dockside apology showed the one truth none of them can outrun. Unity is lethal to gossip and terrible for ratings. So who writes the last chapter? Maybe nobody. Maybe Harlem does. Maybe the fans decide which cut becomes canon the way they always do, by what they watch, what they share, and who they let tell their story without flinching. Until signatures dry and cameras roll, the final author is still the timeline. And the timeline, as ever, rewards whoever understands that in this business, a narrative isn't won, it's maintained.